Hello, it's my pleasure to be here with my friend and a teacher, Ren Dan Dan. Ren Dan Dan teaches at Tianjin Conservatory of Music, and well, it's a real pleasure to interview her for you guys today. So, welcome Ren Dan Dan.
Thank
you. Alright, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, such as where you grew up and how you got into composing, and all the way up to what you are doing now at the moment?
Okay, yeah. I was born in Shenyang, a city in northeast China. And I grew up there, and I studied composition there. When in my high school, I decided to have the test to the Tianjin Conservatory of Music.
Okay.
So I studied from then when I was in middle school, high school. Yeah.
So how old were you when you went to Shenyang Conservatory?
I was 17.
Okay.
I played piano when I was young, about 7 years old. So I studied composition at 15, maybe. And then I studied in Tianjin Conservatory for 8 years, including the graduate, the bachelor degree and the master degree.
Okay.
Yes.
And then after the master's degree you went to the China Conservatory, is it?
Yes. After that I worked in Xi'an University for a year. Then I go to China Conservatory to study a doctor's degree.
Which you now have as well.
Yes.
Of course. And you are teaching at the moment in Tianjin Conservatory of Music?
Yes. After graduate from China Conservatory of Music, I teach in Tianjin Conservatory of Music. So all conservatories.
Great, yeah. Good. And tell us how you got into composition. What made you, for example, think, oh, I want to be a composer? What got you interested in composition?
I think the main reason is Chopin.
Chopin?
Chopin, yes. When I play the piano, I just love Chopin's music. And he is a composer. I like to play his piano pieces, but my hands are too small. So I think composition is more suitable for me.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So originally you maybe wanted to be a pianist?
No, not really. I just like to play the piano, but not for a career.
That's okay, it's all part of the ambience. Part of the ambience. Can you reach an octave? Can you?
Yes, hardly.
Just about?
Just a little bit. Octave.
So you can play most pieces of
Most,
music.
yes.
And how do you go about composing? I mean, what is the process? How do you do your composition?
Oh, the process. Oh.
Yeah.
That's a long story.
Good, we have a long time.
The process is, first, it's not complicated. I sometimes think about a tune and think about what I want to say. Like maybe I want to express an ethnic tune. and using the instruments, then I start to write the tune. Then it become complicated. How to develop the melody, how to accompaniment.
How to accompany it.
Yeah, how to accompany it, and how to form the whole piece. That needs a lot of theories, I think. But basically, I feel a lot about the music, because sometimes the theory tells me how to do next, but the feels tells me, is that good?
So you're saying, tell me if I got you right.
Yeah.
Music theory tells you that you should do it one way,
Yeah.
but sometimes your heart or you feel that you should maybe do it another way because that expresses yourself better. So it's sometimes you have to break the rules.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And how did you approach learning composition?
Learning composition.
Yeah, how did you study it? How did you begin to get it? So back when you started learning composition, what things did you do to improve your compositional skills and to learn about composition and the techniques and those kind of things?
First step, always to listen more and more pieces by many composers, and every century, in every century, yes.
From every century, from all the musical periods, basically.
Yeah, basically all the musical periods. Yeah. For the technique, I think the music from classical to romantic period, the techniques are traditional, and they are easy to learn. Maybe not so easy, but it's needed to learn. Yeah.
There's a logical process to learn those techniques.
There are logical process, yes. Harmony, form, and sometimes counterpoint. They all very important, and they can learn to get very good at it.
Okay.
But when the music come to the 20th century, it gets more and more complicated, and the technique are more harder. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you think of an example?
Maybe Schoenberg.
Oh.
Yeah.
Harder to listen to as well, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for students it's necessary to learn traditional techniques, and for 20th century, after the century, this century, that 20th century, they can select some of the techniques they like.
From the 20th century onwards, or from earlier times?
From 20th century onwards.
All right, so they have a basis in
in
the traditional techniques.
Yes.
And then if they want to learn 20th century techniques, they can add those as well to their repertoire.
I mean, they need to know what's the traditional techniques, and then they need to know some of the 20th century's techniques.
Okay.
Not all. No one can know all the techniques, I think. And not everyone like that.
That's true. So you mentioned Schoenberg, so that would be serialism?
Yeah.
Would you recommend people learn a little bit about the serialist techniques?
Maybe if they interested in it, they can learn some of it. They can practice to write in the serious way. But if they don't like that, I think it's not necessary.
Okay. And what 20th century techniques do you personally like?
For me, there are many. Maybe the orchestral colors. The instruments make unique sounds that when you add it into orchestral work, it makes a new sound.
So the example that I'm thinking of is your piece Under the Kapok Tree.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk about one or two effects that you use in that?
Yeah. In the first movement, I use from the beginning, I use the brass and the woodwinds in a different way. The woodwinds, they just clap the keyboard keys.
Key clicks.
Key. Yeah, yeah. It makes the sounds like tree leaves, maybe. That's my imagine. And the brass, they blow air into the tube and don't make the tone. So they are air sound, only like the wind.
Okay. So it sounds like you're saying with the clicks from the woodwind instruments, you have the effect of maybe rustling leaves.
Yes.
I remember blowing into the instruments, into the brass instruments, without any kind of notes. That creates a feeling of wind.
Yes.
It sounds very impressionist.
Oh yeah, maybe. Thank you. And also the strings, they pizzicato on the highest notes. It makes the sounds like the raindrops.
The pizzicato on the highest notes, are they fixed notes, or is it just the highest notes
just
that the person can play?
Highest notes the player can play.
Okay. Great.
So that's occasionally in the music.
So you like to use 20th, 21st century orchestration techniques?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Going on to teaching. When you teach composition, how do you teach your students?
Oh, teach. Now I think teaching is really important to think more. It's different to teach different students. Some students, they have their own ideas. They know what they want, and they can express what they want to you. So as a teacher, I think I need to encourage them to express their own music, and then use the exact technique that make their music sounds good. That's the easy way, I think. That's not very hard. But what's hard for me is that some students, they don't know what they want. Maybe at that occasion, I need to inspire them to find what they really like. Yeah. For Chinese students, they always have somebody to tell them what to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the college, I think it's time for them to think about what they want to do, what they really need to do.
That's interesting, yeah. So you have both kinds of students. You have students that know what they want.
Yes.
And you kind of help them achieve that result.
Yes.
And then you have students that don't really know what they want. And
right.
if they don't know what they want, it's kind of very difficult to get that thing, whatever it might be.
Right, right. They may, sometimes they write a music piece. Sounds like classical music, like Mozart or Beethoven. And then I'll tell them the music is good, sounds good, but it doesn't sound like you. So I think it's important for them to find their own music.
To find their own musical voice, so to speak.
Yes, yes.
That's good. And do your students use Western techniques? Do they use Chinese techniques? Chinese instruments, Western instruments? What sort of processes and instruments do they use?
Mostly we teach instrumentation from Western instruments, but also I think it's important for Chinese students to know Chinese instruments and write some pieces about using the Chinese instruments.
And what has, so we're going to change back to yourself a little bit more. What has been your most successful or favourite composition that you have written to date?
Oh, for me, I think I still need to write more pieces. For now, not very satisfied, but I think it's good enough. Is my orchestra piece under the Kapok Tree.
Under the Kapok Tree.
Kapok Tree, yes.
So that's K-A-P-O-K, is it?
Yes.
Okay. How do you say that in Chinese?
木棉树.
木棉树.
And the music, the piece name is 木棉树下, under the Kapok Tree.
Under the Kapok Tree.
Yes.
Great. And you also have another piece which I heard called Fusionism.
Oh, yeah, that's chamber music. Yeah, and that's mixed chamber music.
Mixed as in?
Western instrument like cello, and Chinese instruments like pipa.
Like the pipa?
Zheng.
Guzheng?
Zheng, yes. And Jinghu.
Jinghu. Ooh, I'm not sure. I'll just explain some of these instruments for our audiences. They might not be familiar with them.
Yeah.
So a pipa, it's kind of like a mandolin or a guitar that you hold like this.
Yes.
And you play with kind of an outward movement of the fingers as opposed to an inward movement, isn't it?
Out.
Outward movement,
Yes.
yeah. Like that.
Yes.
Guzheng, that's what we heard earlier when we were talking right at the beginning.
Across the corridor.
Yeah, they were tuning it, I think, weren't they?
Yes.
The Guzheng is kind of like a Japanese koto. I think it's in English it's translated as zither sometimes. It's like a block of wood with 21 strings
Yes.
across it,
Yes.
and you can pluck the strings, and it's normally tuned. Was it?
In D.
Mm,
Tuned in D major, but
all right.
but only 5 notes.
All right. So it's tuned in D. I used to study Guzheng as well.
Pentatonic.
Pentatonic scales. Yeah, I think when I played it, we played it in C. So we had C, D, E, G, and A.
Oh.
And so, like, whatever notes you play, even if you can't play it, it's going to sound quite nice anyway.
Yeah.
It's like the black
yeah.
keys on a piano.
Yeah.
And the other one was, did you say Jinghu?
Jinghu is a smaller 二胡.
Oh, okay.
Like it's used always used in Peking opera.
Is Jinghu like a gaohu?
More I think higher than gaohu.
So it's a smaller instrument.
Smaller, yes.
So an erhu it's the equivalent of a violin, but it doesn't look like a violin. I mean, it does have 2 strings, and it's played with a bow, but it's kind of held like this.
Yeah.
And bowed like this.
Yes.
And the bow actually threads through the strings. You don't press on it, it's through the strings.
Yes.
So that's how you get the sound.
Yes. Also, that's jinghu. They like this.
And the jinghu is like an erhu but smaller.
Smaller.
So it plays the higher notes in a piece of music. So those 3 instruments, did you have any other Chinese instruments?
The percussions.
Chinese percussion,
Yes.
such
Such as 大唐鼓.
so that's a big Tang-style drum.
Yes, a big drum. And 板鼓, also used in Peking opera.
So what is a bangu? That's a drum that's...
A drum that's not very big, small drum, and you
use sticks.
Yes, sticks, and mostly the notes are higher. Oh, there's no notes.
But it's in
The
a higher
sound,
range.
sound is higher. Yes.
Okay. Any other symbols or anything?
Yes, cymbals and gongs in that piece. Yes.
And for Western instruments, you used a cello.
Cello, just cello.
Just cello.
Yes.
Ah, okay, cool. I was going to say in a lot of Chinese orchestras, they now use a cello anyway, don't they?
Yeah.
And what would you like to do regarding composition in the future?
Gonna do.
Yeah, what would you like to do? What compositions would you like to create in the future? Or plans?
I plans to write more vocal pieces for maybe a song or chorus. Yes.
Alright, so quick 5 questions related to composition. What one thing should a composer do every day to be a better composer?
One thing.
Yeah, just one thing.
I think to write down notes is the one thing.
So basically to write something every day.
Yes.
And what is your favorite chord?
Chord? Oh. I like the fourth that many fours together.
So chords.
So fast. Perfect fourth.
Tertiary harmony, I think we call it. Quartal harmony. Quartal harmony. Chords based on fourth. Would you like to play some on the piano so we have an idea?
Like this.
Quartal harmony.
Yes.
Any other chords that you like as well?
Chords?
Yeah.
Is that a chord?
Yeah, we could call it a chord. I don't know what chord it is, but...
Okay. I like this chord.
You like that one?
Yes.
Okay. What about sequence? A chord sequence. Do you have a favorite chord sequence?
Oh, chord sequence. Yes, I like this sound.
So can you tell us what you're doing, Meg?
This is tonic.
Which tonic is it?
In C.
So C major.
C major tonic, and then it's sixth, flat.
Flat and sixth.
Yes, flat and sixth.
So that'd be an A flat.
A flat, major.
A flat major.
chord. Yes. I like this sequence.
So from C, the tonic, to a flat and sixth, the A flat,
Yes.
and then back to the tonic.
Yes.
Nice.
That's the sound.
And why do you like that sound?
I think it brought me lights. It sounds bright.
It sounds bright.
Yes.
Good, good. Who do you admire most as a composer? Who do you kind of look up to as a composer?
Two composers.
Okay.
Chopin.
Chopin.
Yeah, and then Ravel.
Ravel. Okay.
Yes.
And why do you like those composers?
Chopin is when I play the piano. I love his music, really romantic. And after study of orchestration, I like the orchestra very much. And then Ravel, he's the great orchestration composer.
Yeah, he's a master of the orchestra.
Yes, the master of orchestra. Yes. So
Orchestration.
I like his music too.
Can you think of any particular pieces that you would recommend to our viewers and listeners?
Yes, bolero.
Bolero.
Yes.
That's Ravel's Bolero, and
Yes. And Daphne.
Daphne and Chloe.
Chloe. Yes.
Yeah, that's a nice one as well.
Yeah.
And what about from Chopin? For those people who aren't so familiar with piano.
Yeah, all the piano pieces are good, I think.
All of them?
All of them. I like his prelude. 24 preludes.
24 preludes.
Yes.
Okay.
And also some of his etudes.
Etudes.
Yes.
Great. 3 more questions and then we'll call it a day. Who do you think is most overrated as a composer? So what I mean by that is, who do you think is somebody that lots of people say, this person is great, fantastic, but you think, well, maybe they're good, but they're not that good. They're not as good as people say they are, maybe. Can you think of somebody who is overrated?
I never think of this question. So I don't know.
Nobody comes to mind.
Nobody. I never thought about the question like this.
Okay. It was interesting when I interviewed Yao Laoshe. He mentioned that he thought a lot of romantic composers were overrated.
Oh, really? But I think we know the composers now. That means they are famous.
Oh yeah.
And there must be a reason why they are famous. Mostly because their music are good and people love them.
Okay. And who do you think is the most underrated composer?
Oh.
So that is maybe a composer that people don't really know so much, or don't think is so good, but really is quite good.
Well, maybe some composer even I don't know. But still, the composers who we know are already very famous.
Can you think of any one of those that should maybe be more famous?
Ravel?
Ravel should be more famous.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's quite famous to students, but to people who music students.
Yes.
But to people who aren't music students, they don't really know him so much, do they?
Right, and his music is hard to play. So many orchestra, they choose not to play too much.
Okay, great. And the last one, contact. If anybody wanted to get in contact with you or find out more information about you, do you have a website or a YouTube channel or a Chinese equivalent that people could go to? Maybe hear more of your music or find out more about you?
Oh, I have a Facebook.
You have Facebook?
Yeah, but I didn't put my music online.
Would you be comfortable telling people about your Facebook page?
Yes,
you don't have to
my
if you don't want to.
name. My name is Ren Dan Dan. The English name is the Chinese name.
So
Same
it's
name.
Ren, R-E-N,
Yes.
Dan Dan, D-A-N-D-A-n.
Yes.
That's together, is it?
Not
Or
together.
spaces?
Ren Dan Dan.
So Ren space Dan Dan, one word.
Yes.
Okay. And people can find you on Facebook.
Yes.
Okay. Any other places?
What places?
For example, YouTube or Yoku?
No, we cannot go to YouTube very freely. So.
Okay.
Same as Facebook. So maybe you could.
Yoku, I might be able to find some pieces.
Yeah, under the Kapok Tree.
Okay, so for our viewers, Yoku is a Chinese website that is the equivalent of YouTube in many ways. It's where the Chinese people put videos, and well, people from other countries can put videos on there as well. And how do I spell Yoku? Is it Y?
Y-U-K-U.
Y-U-K-U. It's not Y.
No, Y-O-U-K-U.
So Y-O-U-K-U.
Yes.
.com.
.com.
And to find your music, would they need to write Chinese or the...
Chinese.
Okay. So as part of the notes to this interview, I will put the Chinese there so people can copy and paste.
Yeah.
And also I will see if I can find a link myself to Yoku and put that in there as well.
Yes, okay.
Is fusionism on uku as well?
No. I don't have the live video. I only have the recording. So on YouTube, they are all videos.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed the interview, and hopefully some of our viewers will be able to go and find out more about your music.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.